This is WBSM On Demand. The time is now to talk about everything happening here on the South Coast and beyond. It's time for South Coast Now with Chris McCarthy. Call into the show at 508-996-0500 or send Chris an app chat message or open line voicemail on the WBSM app. It's the most interactive show on the South Coast. It's South Coast Now.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the last hour of the program. I have, as always, the mayor of the city of New Bedford, Mayor John Mitchell, here in studio. John, good morning.
Great to be here, Chris.
Thank you.
Lovely day out there.
Thank you. And he came in, and I commented on his coat, and he offered me another coat.
Wasn't the one off of my back. But,
no,
yeah,
but almost literally.
Yeah, almost. Yeah,
almost.
We'll bring it in for you.
I love that.
Yeah, you look great in it.
So thank you. You had a very interesting night.
Last night, yeah. I mean, we went up to speak to a group of students at Harvard. We were invited up to give. I sort of gave this duet with Jeff Roy, who is a state representative from Central Mass, who's chair of the Telecommunications and Energy Committee. Good guy. Worked very closely with him on offshore wind stuff. And so they wanted us to talk about the Vineyard Wind Project and offshore wind, the port of New Bedford. So, yeah, it was good stuff. But I think the most interesting thing is that there were two students in an audience of like 50 who were local. There was Tatum Reese, who's a neighbor of mine. She's a freshman. And then there was Julia Downey, who's from Mattapoisett, went to Stang. Yeah, she was there as well. So it was good to see local kids in the audience.
And they're both at Harvard.
Yes.
Yeah,
they're both freshmen. Yeah.
No, that's great. That is great. That's why, I wanted to bring it onto the air because I just think that's really pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Look, it's good that we're getting the word out about offshore wind and what New Bedford.
And New Bedford.
Yeah, I mean, part of my role as mayor is to be an evangelist of New Bedford.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you. When I was at the radio in Boston, you were always willing to join me up there to come on the air and talk about the great things that happen in New Bedford. So it's really true.
Yeah, the Vineyard Wind Project's getting a lot of attention because it is the first major offshore wind project in the United States. So I've spoken about the project in lots of venues, and will continue to do so because it shows the city in a very positive light. Yeah, we talked. It's funny this thing last night. We talked a little bit about the city's brand a little bit, and I talked about how one of the benefits of being immersed in renewable energy is in addition to taxpayer savings and some job creation, and in the case of offshore wind, potentially in the long run, a lot of job creation. It's good for the city's brand rather than looking, gritty and trailing behind. We're seen more as leading the pack. And I spoke to them directly. I said, look, I go around. I know lots of mayors around the country, and I participate extensively in the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'm a board member there, so I've gotten to know lots of cities around the U.S. and they've gotten to know New Bedford. And it is the case. Yeah, there is this stigma about New Bedford beyond our borders, but it is primarily a Boston thing. It's not really. You talk to people outside of New England, they immediately
know Moby Dick.
They Moby Dick.
Right.
They know fishing.
Yeah.
And those are positive associations. And what we get from, I was very frank with the kids because I'm sure they turn on the Boston stations,
Channel
TV
7,
stations,
Channel 5,
right?
yeah.
All of them. And I said, look, when they, if you see coverage on Boston TV of New Bedford, and 90% of it is one of three things. It's either a shooting, and compared to Boston, we have very few of those. It's a fire, or it's a boat sinking, or some other calamity. That's it. They don't cover politics here. They don't cover culture. They don't do any of that stuff. And it's almost like, it's like having them come here at all is frankly a net negative for Greater New Bedford, because they don't know the place. They don't cover it in any depth at all. It's all the splashy stuff. So it creates a skewed impression. I said that impression doesn't exist outside of Massachusetts because that phenomenon doesn't sort of carry any message about New Bedford other than a positive one.
So, talk about Vineyard Wind.
I don't mean to sound like we've talked about this before. I don't mean to sound like sour grapes, but this is something that we.
Well, you got a little chip on your shoulder. There's nothing wrong with that.
I have
nothing wrong with that. We all do.
We're proudly.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I do. People accuse me of that, and I'm fine with it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So Vineyard Wind is, talk about it. The energy.
Yeah. Well, so they're up to 5 turbines now, which is a good thing, right? 62 total, and it's taking a little bit longer than they expected for a variety of reasons. But from New Bedford's standpoint, that's not a bad thing. It means that they will continue to work on that terminal for longer. Whereas these are the marshaling of offshore wind projects are basically construction projects. Construction projects last for some period of time. In the case of a wind project like Vineyard Winds, it's somewhere between a year and 18 months. And if it gets extended a little bit longer, that's okay, because the people working on the terminal, if they're local, that means their job there lasts longer. If they're not local, it means they're staying in our hotels and eating in our restaurants.
Right.
So that's all. That's fine by me. And then we work on the next project. Some of that's coming up, Chris.
They can now power up to 30,000 homes.
They can, those turbines. So like we look over here, I can't see it today with all the fog. But
That's smog because of the pollution.
You think that's what it is?
No.
Forest fire?
It is. It's those damn Canadian fires.
No, that's not what's going on. I hope the Fairhaven Fire Department isn't listening. No, we don't see.
They are listening.
Well, so as we look over there, we can't see the.
It's just fog.
But you can see on a clear day, we can see the Fairhaven windmills, and those, just to give people a perspective, they're pretty tall. You can see them all from all around the area. Those are about half as tall as the offshore wind ones that are being installed right now. So they can generate a lot of power, an awful lot of power. And I think I saw somewhere, don't quote me on this, anybody, but one rotation can power a house for a full day.
Really?
Like around once.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. It's a lot of electricity, a lot of wind, and those blades are massive. Each one is over a football field long. So you get 3 big ones, and they go.
If people haven't gone down and looked, they ought to at the waterfront.
Well, they should look at the waterfront, but mind you, so those towers down there are just segments of the whole tower. They're a lot tall. Those things get stacked on all 3 at a time. So it's actually like a 40-story building off of the water.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
I know Tony Alvarez, for instance, who owns a couple of fishing boats in the city. I mean, he goes out. He's been a contractor to them. He goes out. Yeah. And he was showing me the other day the amount of them that are out there on a. It was on his phone.
Yep.
So it was like the radar, something that was showing me, and how many there are. It's really incredible.
So they have, of the 62 out there, they have foundations in place for, I think it's 47. And so those are close to done. Like when the weather, some of it's weather dependent. So here we are in February, the weather's lousy, but when we get to May or so, probably before then, they'll be all done with that. And then they'll just keep putting up the towers and the nacelles and the blades, and more will start spinning, more power will be coming in. So they'll be done. They project to be done by the end of the calendar year. It's probably going to go into next year, and as I said, for the reasons I mentioned, it's fine by me.
We'll be taking phone calls at 508-996-0500. Super Tuesday's coming up.
Super Duper Tuesday, yeah.
Right.
It's coming up. So please, everybody, go vote. As we've said before, it's if you're listening here, you're
probably speaking to the converted, but
yeah.
bring a friend.
But just let's all bring friends. Let's all encourage everybody. That's probably the best way to do it. A little bit of. There's plenty of ways to say it diplomatically, but not sounding like you're preaching to people. But just say, hey, when are you going to vote?
There are local people on the ballot. I don't know if people realize this. Those who vote regularly realize it. You'll have the Republican state committee people, the Democrat state committee people. So when you go there, there'll be names that you can recognize on the ballot beyond Donald Trump if you pull that ballot, or Joe Biden if you pull the other ballot. You've got local people on the ballot. That's a reason to go.
It's another reason to go. You might know some of those people.
And we can't give you a reason to go. Literally, we can't give you anything.
There will be no raffle. There will be no door prize.
We can't give a piece of pizza. I think that's illegal.
Is it? If it is, we should be buying more pizza.
We should, right?
Yeah, something.
What I found in the greater New Bedford area, free food really moves people.
Free food does, for sure. Yeah, look, I'm open to ideas. We can run them by our legal staff to make sure they're good. But if there's some enticement that we can include as part of the exercise in casting your vote, and it passes legal muster, then I'm all for it. But I'll tell you, I look at it just as we are right now. We have early voting going on, have had it going on since end of last week, and it's at the main branch of the public library, and which is kind of right out my window, and it doesn't look like there's been a lot of people coming in. Right. This is when I say, let's try real hard to pick up the pace.
Yes, right. Pick up the pace.
Yeah.
Mayor, before we take calls and before we go to commercial, this week we've had Councilor Gomes came on the air. There's been some discussions about your appointees to the licensing board, and he sort of indicated to me, and it's available at the podcast. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he gave the impression that you might be wavering on your position on the nip ban. Is there any waiver in your position on banning nips in the city of New Bedford?
No. I say that because I don't know if did you ask him what he based that on? Because I haven't had a conversation with him about it.
It was wide-ranging conversation. We didn't get around to where he was basing that on. He just had a feeling that there was. So I'm just wondering if there's any.
No, I don't mean to sound like I'm just sort of dismissing it out of hand. We've given some thought, a lot of thought to.
I don't think there's anything you don't give thought to.
And we've got 3 very responsible people, 3 retired senior police officers on the licensing board: Sonny Marcelino, Ed Craig, and Rick Resendiz. And they do a great job, very thoughtful, and they're from different political parties, and they go about their job with a great deal of care. I agreed with their vote to impose a nip ban. They heard from other people, and they said, all right, we'll delay it. They see what I see, what so many people in the city see, which is nip litter everywhere. It's all over the place. We continue to pick it up, and frankly, a lot of look, I don't mean to. There's a lot of people who have been making a lot of noise about this who do not live in my city, and
the liquor store owners.
Well, yeah, for sure, and I'd say to them, look, I mean, if this creates a problem, and
because it's beyond litter,
it creates a problem. It's litter. It's vagrancy.
Right. Look
out my other office window, and you'll see the people who are hanging around the bus station. They're hanging around there. They have nips. I mean, we watch them. We send the police over like almost every single day. Look, break up those guys over there. It's a daily thing. They're sitting there in front of the liquor store with nips in their pockets, a lot of them. And it's not just that one.
So it's not just litter. In other words, if someone came up with a litter plan, you'd still be against nips, right?
So we have litter plans. We sweep streets. Okay. We have Operation Clean Sweep out there to volunteers who pick up after all these people throw out their nips and other stuff. And then we have DPI and other city agencies who do a whole lot of picking up. Like, we're not a maid service. We're not there to okay, well, just go ahead and we'll pick up after you.
What I mean by that is there's a deposit plan down the Cape that I know Councilor Gomes indicated that maybe that was something that's possible for the city. In my understanding, and I followed this entire program through, that litter is not your major concern with NIPS.
that is a big concern. It's not the only one.
Not the only one, right?
It is. So we deal with vagrancy, and the reason why you see people hanging around liquor stores outside, and police have a tough time doing anything about it, is people can put nips in their pockets. You can't put a fifth of Jack in your pants pocket. You can put a nip. So that's the big difference.
Right.
And so unless the police have some other predicate to pat somebody down, or if someone's not obviously drunk, the police really can't do much about that. And then what do? Right? So let's just say they lock somebody up. The same guy that could have locked up the day before and the day after, right? Because it's a habitual thing.
Right.
They go to person shows up to be arraigned, and the judges at third district court just let him right out the door, and then it starts over again. So yeah, you've got to do something different. Neighborhood, you talk to people. Downtown, obviously, it's an issue. You talk to people on the Ave, it's an issue. You talk to people on County Street in the South End, it's an issue, right? There are probably a half a dozen liquor stores around the city where there are people who just go in and buy it. And that's not to cast aspersion. It's about people buying nips. I mean, you and I have bought nips. Right?
Absolutely.
It's not like
Absolutely.
we're above it all.
Right. No,
It's just we're not holier than thou. It's just there's a problem you got to deal with.
Problem we got to deal with. Folks, I see you all on hold. Stay there. We're going to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. We have Mayor John Mitchell here in the studio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Map.
Is that him? The mayor has a fun fact about this band, the Grassroots.
Yeah. The guy who plays Creed on The Office, if you watch The Office, he was in this band. In fact, he's I think his real name is Creed.
I agree with you. It is, because it shows in the credits.
Yeah. It's like he plays in the Office, a fictionalized version of himself. But he's but he was in this band. He was a '60s rocker.
We have the video playing, and I'm trying to identify him.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to Wikipedia it or something. But
we have full phone lines, Mayor. So let's go to them.
I'm ready.
You are ready. Good morning. Thank you for holding.
Hi. My name is Gail Dayton, and I live at 38 Willow Street. I'm abutting 1061 Pleasant Street. And actually, I've been trying to contact the mayor's office and get an appointment to talk to him because of the ongoing concerns in our neighborhood. Basically, Ben Marshall is trying to take the entire parking lot and turn it into 50 apartments. We're not opposed to him doing the building itself and putting apartments in. He'll have the parking spaces for cars there. What we are opposed to, his plans will leave 6 parking spots for 50 apartments. As it is, our neighborhood is crunched for parking spaces, and people are using the parking lot now to find a place to park. If this comes in, it's going to be a real problem, especially where we're directly across from the footbridge leading into our neighborhood. And people have suggested, stickers so we can park, which won't help because if you have 50 cars, 50 apartments, well, they're all going to need stickers too. Where do you put them? And also, too, the TOD did a cutout on Willow Street just because of the parking lot. Everything else is on Pleasant. And Willow Street, because of their parking lot, has a little tiny cutout. And also, the 0.75 car per apartment, which is being proposed for the TOD, really doesn't work. And Ben Marshall, his thing is that people won't have cars there. It's so disingenuous.
All right, hold on one second, Gail. We'll let the mayor chime in.
No, thanks, Gail. I'm generally aware of the situation, and I think the punchline is that I think there has to be more thought that goes into more thought that goes into the parking arrangement there, so everybody understands what's going on. If you don't mind, I'll just back up and give people a little bit of context. So
Sure.
There's Ben Marshall is a developer who's trying to develop. It's really two properties over on Pleasant Street. It's there's the former Child and Family Services building, the Hetty Green Mansion, and then there's another building right near it. And so these are two buildings that are important to redevelop. They're historic properties, and it's good that to see them brought back into productive use. And the productive use really is only one viable use there, and that's to create housing. So the question is, well, how do you balance that need to regenerate those apartments, right? Which means itself means that there have to be enough apartments so that the developer can make a profit versus, the parking situation, right? He's got to create some off-street parking so that you don't have things aren't all bollocksed up over there. So, I think the neighborhood concerns are legitimate, and the exact number, the parking analysis is not an exact science, right? So I think the best thing we can do is just to make sure that we come to some kind of the right compromise. But I think your concerns are good ones. I'll take them back to the planning department. And hold on 1 second. Let me just complete the thought. So what I'd say to you is, it's a legitimate concern. It's not a NIMBYism thing. I think the neighborhood would like to see those buildings come back to life. You don't want a situation where it's there's traffic jams all the time, or an inability to find parking near your house.
Well, and let me interject. As a neighborhood, we've gone to the zoning board meetings. We welcomed him to 1049. He had the parking for it. We're like, go for it. And we've even said, if he develops the existing building and puts in the amount of apartments he wants, he has the amount of parking spaces in the lot to accommodate that. We won't oppose that. What we are opposed to is that's a historic building. Like you said, it's important. What he's proposing there are 2 4-story buildings that look very much like the Veterans Transition Home. And as far as not in my backyard, I mean, we are a welcoming neighborhood. We were fine with the Veterans Transition. We are fine with 1049. We're okay with 1061. It's the scope of it. Yep. And honestly, he put his dumpster plan literally up against my backyard. And he's asking for variances for everything. He's trying to put these buildings within 10 feet of our backyard. The building itself, I mean, it's going to block out all the light in our neighborhood. My husband and I walked around our neighborhood, and we had a petition. And within a half an hour, every person that answered the door, which I'm surprised how many people did, everyone signed it. Everyone said, where do I sign? This will not work. And I understand my daughter lives in New York City. I understand, we're not New York City. We don't have the... Okay,
thank you, Gail. Appreciate your call.
Let me just say one thing. It's been a while since it's come to my attention, but I'm going to delve back into it now that Gail's brought this up. And you're not going to hear from me that there's, this is, NIMBYism on the part of the neighborhood. I don't believe it is. And I think they have some reasonable concerns that need to be accommodated. Will there be some change? Yeah, we'll change. I think if you want to have those big buildings restored to active use, you don't want them vacant, then, there's going to be some need to accommodate. But I think I'll just say that the neighbors bring up some very legitimate concerns, and I think that I'm pretty confident we'll be able to arrive at some kind of compromise that works for everybody.
508-996-0500 so you can get on the program. Good morning. Thank you for calling.
Hey, good morning, guys. I'm just calling about the NIP ban. My opinion in that, from what I hear on all this time that's being talked about, it's like we're trying to control public drunkenness and litter. And those are two things that society, unfortunately, we've never been able to get a handle on. And if we're going to go that route as far as trash goes, you got to eliminate cigarettes and scratch tickets. And I remember the mayor had said you can't put a fifth in your pocket. No, you can't. But the store will put a bag around that bottle. And the guy standing there in the corner is not going to go without his drink because the city of New Bedford banned nips. He's going to unscrew that, take a sip, keep it in the bag, and the public drunkenness is going to get much worse, in my opinion. All this is going to do is hurt the business owners that are trying to pay their high property tax to begin with. I just don't think it's a good idea. There's some things that we can't get a handle on in society. Maybe an anti-litter and anti-drinking campaign with posters or billboards. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. But I don't think banning nips is the problem. An alcoholic is not going to go without his drink because he can't get his hand in a nip. I just think this is the wrong way to go about it. People are struggling. They're lucky to have the tax money coming in from these liquor stores in the city. If that's the bulk of what they sell, that's the bulk of what they sell. And I'm in Brockton right now, and if you drive by any bus station in America, you're going to see vagrancy and people hanging out. That's just the nature of the bus station. I don't know why. It's just the way it is.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Maybe it goes back to those old those beat novels about taking the bus around. Jack Kerouac and whatnot. I don't know either, but he's right about that.
I don't know. I think I don't resign myself to the idea that you're going to have vagrancy around the bus station. What are we going to do? Like just say, oh, that's just the way it is. Never mind.
No, I agree with you.
You go to New York, I'll tell you what, you go to Penn Station in New York. If you went to Penn Station in New York 20 years ago, you'd see vagrancy all over the place or in the 90s, right? And you go now, especially when they just built this new Moynihan train station right in the same spot. It's beautiful, all kinds of fancy shops, and you don't see the vagrants around, even though there is a lot of homeless otherwise in New York. You don't see this concentration around the bus stations per se and the train station. So no, I don't just throw up my hands and say there's nothing you can do about it. We're trying to do something about it. And yeah, I think if a person has a drinking problem, right, we should be doing everything we can to help them, but and banning nips is not going to stop alcoholism, but it's not exactly the aim. The aim is to deal with vagrancy and litter. And so if somebody's standing in front of a liquor store with a brown paper bag and with a top sticking out, yeah, the police can do something about that. And that's why you don't see that often.
508-9960-508, number of people on hold. Good morning. Thank you for calling.
Hi.
Hi, you're on the air.
Oh, hi. I wasn't sure. Normally I do know. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. I told you I'd let you on with the mayor.
What? I'm sorry, what?
I told you I'd let you on with the mayor today.
Chris insisted that you be let on. He was off air. He's saying we've got to hear from her.
Yes.
You know what? I really appreciate everything and all the people you bring on your show, and I do appreciate you, Mr. Mayor Mitchell. I can't call you Romano today because I'm a little upset about certain issues, but
you can still refer to me that way. That's okay. Just us.
Well, I just app chat Chris and told him that I won't bring up the airport issue. Just one question about it, because I'm digging into more things. Cicchetti, the ward of this area.
Leo?
He's talking about taking Leo Chicano, yes. He's talking about like expanding I don't want to get riled up. He's talking about like where the cinema, there's a lot of property there. He's talking about expanding the airport and then there. But how can you do that? It doesn't seem like you're capable. But that's it. You don't even got to respond to that. I hope he just heard that. But what I want to say to you, talk about, is the bridge. For me, and I wonder if a lot of people think this, but just don't know how to, bring it out verbally and ask. So I'm going to ask you, how are you going to protect somebody on the bridge, right? Because the width of it.
Which bridge are you talking about?
The one you're doing now to get over to the pier, and quite frankly,
the walking bridge
from Purchase Street, the one by the
pedestrian bridge. So, yep.
Okay, so here's my question, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Where's their security? How are you going to have footage? Because you know darn right well you got to either have a shut-off time on that, but how do you secure the bridge? You could have the hours restricted for people passing through it, because after a certain hour, it's nothing but trouble, right? You would think. But you can't assume it, and I don't want to either. I just want to ask you, the way I guess anybody else out there might be thinking of the same thing. How are you going to protect the pedestrians going and coming back and forth on that? Now, if you say you're going to have cameras, who's to stop anybody from using spray paint, where you won't see the crime committed? So you're going to have to use something really tall and high where they can't do that. But that doesn't stop.
We want to make sure there aren't bad guys aren't very tall.
Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Wait, no, please. Let me just ask you this last question, please.
Okay, go ahead.
There is such a thing, a sawzall. It's easy to, and then it will fall to the sky. I have a great way of keeping protection there, but I will not say it on air because I don't want the criminals to get smart on that. If you would like, the next time you do the people greet thing, I would love to tell you my idea, and I really believe it will be more cost effective.
Definitely, I want to hear it. So,
okay.
All right. So
Thank you for the call, Sketty.
So I would whenever we have something new like that, you want to take security into consideration, so that lighting, cameras, how the police patrol are all things that are important. I would just point out that right now, still, and for the last 40 years, there's been another pedestrian bridge. That green one, that's the ugly one that's been there for a long, long time.
Yes.
Has never required any particular unusual attention. It's just it's there. This one will be much more attractive, and therefore probably
that may cause
a lot more, right? So when you have people going back and forth, even at odd hours, that's a deterrent to crime in general.
Yes.
And because the bad guys don't want to be in a place where they could be seen,
right?
And there will be cameras in places, I won't say where, but nor would I, but there will be those precautions taken. This is the first time I've heard a concern about that. And look, if there's a concern anywhere in the city about that, or people feel something's unsafe, they should let the police know, whether it's on a pedestrian bridge or the sidewalk in front of their house. We want to know about that, but we don't anticipate there being a major issue there.
508-996-0500. That's how you can get on the program. Good morning. Thank you for holding.
Good morning. Mayor, I had two quick questions about since the last time we voted in New Bedford.
Yep.
Do you know if there have been more people registering to vote? Any more than usual?
there's always some churn. So you can register when you get your driver's license, right? So like my daughter Lauren just became a voter since they voted last time. So she's just turned 18, so she's a voter now. And there are people like that, and so there's always churn in the voting rolls.
But I don't think.
Yeah, I have to say. So I don't know if this is anticipating where you're going, but there's long been a discussion, especially among Democrats, about whether registering to vote is as free and easy as it should be. And I've always thought, well, it's not really, the issue is not really with registration, it's just with showing up once you're registered. And that's, so in New Bedford, so in a city of 100,000, there are roughly 4,000, whatever we are. There is roughly 58,000 registered voters. And that registry has to be updated every once in a while. People die, people turn 18, and so people move back and forth. So, but look, I mean, when we have, as we have had at times, elections in which the voter turnout's under 10%, it's really not a 10%. It's the number of people who show up divided by the total number of registered voters, not by the total number of people in the city. So it's really the people who are registered just aren't showing up.
Right, but I have something I wanted to say about NIPS after this quickly, but
Yeah,
I just was wondering, has there been any people switching party affiliation? Has there been any of that, or same as usual?
I think the trend in the city is similar to other places. I think a lot of people are becoming unenrolled. There are more unenrolled voters in the city than there are Democrats or Republicans, and that's true actually statewide now.
It is.
So a lot of people just don't want to be affiliated with the parties. It does speak to something, by the way, that I think would be a good thing, and that is, and I can't imagine the Massachusetts legislature going along with it, but it is. I think we should have open primaries for legislative seats, just as we have an open primary or preliminary in city elections.
Right.
So you can.
Right, I agree.
So everybody, regardless of party, is on the preliminary ballot.
Absolutely.
And if someone wants to say they're a Democrat or Republican, they can. A candidate can note that. But in the top two, regardless of party, go on to the final. I think that's the way state elections should be held. They are in some states. And
should be like that, yeah.
Because for legislative seats, the primary is a winner-take-all proposition. And states that are heavily Democratic, it's oftentimes the Democratic primary. In states where it's the Republican, it's the opposite. But it's
right.
But I think that would do, among other things, I think that would bring more people out. I think it would bring more people out because they'd feel like they had some say in the final decision, and it would probably also cut down on the number of extreme candidates on either side. That would maybe
exactly,
be the
because
benefit.
that doesn't help. Yes, and about thank you. And about the NIPS, I was wondering. I know sometimes around Earth Day there's a cleanup day and whatnot. Couldn't there be just a regular seasonal cleanup in every ward, every precinct? Kind of like posters at all the liquor stores and generally where you find all the NIPS.
Yep.
As you're out walking, yes, we all do see them, and there's plenty of trash other than that. But if each precinct had a cleanup day or, different seasons, I understand we shouldn't have to be picking up other people's trash.
Thanks for the call. Good idea. What do you think?
Yeah, well, so a lot of that happens already through
does.
Operation Clean Sweep and through the city's street sweeping efforts. So a lot of that is in place. There's a huge volunteer network. We're looking at ways of enhancing that. We think we'll have something to announce probably the next few months or next few weeks or so. But I think it's the more people who volunteer just to pick up stuff, even if it's just in front of their house, it would be.
It's good exercise.
Yeah.
It's good exercise. Good for your heart. Everything's good for the city. Right. Folks, stick around. We'll be right back. I'll take a quick break.
Need.
Mayor, we're back now, and the weather is getting warmer. We're starting to think about running. I know you're a runner. The New Bedford Half Marathon.
I don't run too fast anymore. Actually, I never really ran fast. It's coming up. It's March 17th. It's always right around St. Patrick's Day, and the race. It's a great event, and put on by the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick for many years now, and it's and formerly the Greater New Bedford Track Club, which is still involved in it. And it's a terrific event. It brings a lot of people to the city. Yeah, we've seen declining numbers of race participants in recent years, and so the pandemic certainly didn't help. It's not the only reason, but it certainly was a setback. I remember in 2020, the first big decision I had to make about the pandemic was to close off that race, and people thought it was kind of crazy. It was just an overreaction. And when I did that, I think it was like 4 or 5 days ahead, and by the day of the race, people were like, "Yeah, that was a good thing," because that would have like 3,000 people there. Where at that stage of the pandemic would have been like one big petri dish. It would have been one huge super spreader event. So, but anyway, the numbers haven't bounced back since then. So, I really encourage people if if you've been running, you can do it. I've done it before, and if you're out, you can stretch yourself a little bit. Still a little bit of time to get up to 13 miles, and then if you're not going to run, just come on out and cheer the runners on. It's always runners. I mean, having done it myself, when you're out there and people are cheering you on, it's a great feeling. So, and we want people to, especially those who are visiting, to come away with a good impression of the city. It
really is one of those events that puts the city on the map.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, stick around. We'll be right back. It's an eclectic blend.
Well, Chris, I try to span the decades in my selections.
By the way, folks, all these songs are available in 45s at the back door. The mayor is selling them along with concert T-shirts.
All that, yeah.
all that. So, Mayor, we're coming to the end here. Good program. We're leaving the phone lines jammed.
Oh, boy.
But
well, people save those ideas for next time.
Yeah, because you'll be here next week.
I will.
Or they could just see you at your go down to your office or make an appointment with you.
Yeah. Or
they don't get the music.
No, they won't get the music if those other places. But look, if people have something want to get a hold of me about, call the office or shoot me an email or whatever. A lot of people communicate with me that way too. But it's always fun to be on the air here. We get to talk about issues and bounce stuff off of one another and with the callers.
I always leave a bunch of questions that I haven't gotten to, which is why it's always you'll be back next week.
There's always next week.
There's always we leave them wanting more, right? Right. We leave them wanting more. And today we have they're starting to drop off now. They got the message.
Us. Yes.
But folks, Barry will be coming up next again. The half marathon's coming. It's still time to train.
I think so. I'm not really up to it myself this year, but it's been a while. But yeah, if you're a little more spry than I, get out there.
All right, folks, stick around for Barry Ritchie. Will be in next. Mayor John Mitchell's on his way out the door, heading back to City Hall, heading back over the bridge, which soon will be a new bridge. Soon enough. So anyway, folks, stick around. I'll be back tomorrow. Stick around for Barry Ritchie.